Chapter 29. Now the Philistines gathered together all their host to Aphek, and the Israelites encamped by the spring which is in Jezreel. The lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands, and David and his men passed on in the rear guard with Achish. Then the princes of the Philistines said, "Why are these Hebrews here?" Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Isn't this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, who has been with me these days, or rather these years, and I have found no fault in him since he fell away to me to this day?" But the princes of the Philistines were angry with him, and the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Make the man return, that he may go back to his place where you have appointed him, and let him not go down with us to the battle, lest in the battle he become an adversary to us. For with what should this fellow reconcile himself to his Lord? Should it not be with the heads of these our men? Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David to him and said to him, "As the Lord lives, you have been upright, and your going out and your coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. For I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming over to me, even to this very day. Nevertheless the lords don't favor you. Therefore now return and go in peace, that you not displease the lords of the Philistines." David said to Achish, "But what have I done? And what have you found in your servant so long as I have been before you to this day, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" Achish answered David, "I know that you are good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to the battle. Therefore now rise up early in the morning with the servants of your lord who have come with you, and as soon as you are up early in the morning and have light, depart." So David rose up early, he and his men, to depart in the morning, to return to the land of the Philistines. The Philistines went up to Jezreel. Chapter 30. It happened, when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had made a raid on the south and on Ziklag, and had struck Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and all who were therein, both small and great. They didn't kill any, but carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voice and wept, until they had no more power to weep. David's 2 wives were taken captive, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, "Please bring me here the ephod." Abiathar brought there the ephod to David. David inquired of the Lord, saying, "If I pursue after this troop, shall I overtake them?" He answered him, "Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and shall without fail recover all." So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those who were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind, who were so faint that they couldn't go over the brook Besor. They found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he ate, and they gave him water to drink. They gave him a piece of cake, of figs, and 2 clusters of raisins, and when he had eaten, his spirit came to him again, for he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. David said to him, "To whom do you belong, and from where do you come?" He said, "I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me, because 3 days ago I fell sick. We made a raid on the south of the Cherethites, and on that which belongs to Judah, and on the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire." David said to him, "Will you bring me down to this troop?" He said, "Swear to me by God that you will neither kill me, nor deliver me up into the hands of my master, and I will bring you down to this troop." When he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad over all the ground, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil that they had taken up out of the land of the Philistines, and out of the land of Judah. David struck them from the twilight even to the evening of the next day, and there was not a man of them that escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. David recovered all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives. There was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil, nor anything that they had taken to them. David brought back all. David took all the flocks and the herds which they drove before those other cattle, and said, This is David's spoil. David came to the 200 men who were so faint they could not follow David, whom also they had made to stay by the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David, and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near to the people, he greeted them. Then answered all the wicked men and base fellows of those who went with David, and said, Because they didn't go with us, we will not give them anything of the spoil that we have recovered, except to every man his wife and his children, that he may lead them away and depart. Then David said, You shall not do so, my brothers, with that which the Lord has given to us, who has preserved us, and delivered the troop that came against us into our hand. Who will listen to you in this matter? For as his share is who goes down to the battle, so shall his share be who tarries by the baggage. They shall all share alike. It was so from that day forward that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel to this day. When David came to Ziklag, he sent of the spoil to the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, Behold, a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. To those who were in Bethel, and to those who were in Ramoth of the south, and to those who were in Jatir, and to those who were in Aroer, and to those who were in Siphmoth, and to those who were in Eshtemoa, and to those who were in Rachal, and to those who were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to those who were in the cities of the Kenites, and to those who were in Hormah, and to those who were in Borashan, and to those who were in Athak, and to those who were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men used to stay. Chapter 31. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines, and fell down slain on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines followed hard on Saul and on his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan, and Aminadab, and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. The battle went sore against Saul, and the archers overtook him, and he was greatly distressed by reason of the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, Draw your sword, and thrust me through, lest these uncircumcised ones come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was very afraid. Then Saul took his sword and fell on it. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he likewise fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men that same day together. When the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley, and those who were beyond the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and lived in them. It happened on the next day, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head, and stripped off his armor, and sent into the land of the Philistines round about, to carry the news to the house of their idols and to the people. They put his armor in the house of the Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. When the inhabitants of Jabesh-Gilead heard concerning him that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose, and went all night, and took the body of Saul, and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan, and they came to Jabesh, and burnt them there. They took their bones, and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. The second book of Samuel, chapter 1. It happened after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It happened on the 3rd day, that a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes torn, and earth on his head. And so it was when he came to David, that he fell to the earth. David said to him, From where do you come? He said to him, Out of the camp of Israel I am escaped. David said to him, How went the matter? Please tell me. He answered, The people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. David said to the young men who told him, How do you know that Saul and Jonathan his son are dead? The young man who told him said, As I happened by chance on Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul was leaning on his spear, and the chariots and the horsemen followed hard after him. When he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me. I answered, Here I am. He said to me, Who are you? I answered him, I am an Amalekite. He said to me, Stand, I pray you, beside me, and kill me, for anguish has taken hold of me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them here to my lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and tore them, and likewise all the men who were with him, and they mourned, and wept, and fasted until evening for Saul, and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. David said to the young men who told him, Where are you from? He answered, I am the son of a foreigner, an Amalekite. David said to him, How were you not afraid to put forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall on him. He struck him so that he died. David said to him, Your blood be on your head, for your own mouth testified against you, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. And he asked them to teach the children of Judah the song of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jashar. Your glory, Israel, is slain on your high places. How the mighty are fallen. Don't tell it in Gath. Don't publish it in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew nor rain on you, neither fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was vilely cast away, the shield of Saul not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan didn't turn back, the sword of Saul didn't return empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives. In their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet delicately, who put ornaments of gold on your clothing. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle! Jonathan is slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen! The weapons of war perished. Chapter 2. It happened after this, that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? The Lord said to him, Go up. David said, Where shall I go? He said, To Hebron. So David went there, and his 2 wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. His men who were with him David brought also, every man with his household, and they lived in the cities of Hebron. The men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. They told David, saying, The men of Jabesh-Gilead were those who buried Saul. David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh-Gilead, and said to them, Blessed are you of the Lord, that you have shown this kindness to your Lord, even to Saul, and have buried him. Now the Lord show loving kindness and truth to you, and I also will return this kindness to you, because you have done this thing. Now therefore let your hands be strong, and be valiant, for Saul your Lord is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. Now Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, had taken Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Abner the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. Joab the son of Zeruiah and the servants of David went out and met them by the pool of Gibeon, and they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. Abner said to Joab, "Please let the young men arise and play before us." Joab said, "Let them arise." Then they arose and went over by number, 12 for Benjamin, and for Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and 12 for the servants of David. They caught every one his fellow by the beard, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side, so they fell down together. Therefore that place was called Helkath Hazorim, which is in Gibeon. The battle was very severe that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servants of David. The 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, and Abishai, and Asahel. Asahel was light of foot as a wild gazelle. Asahel pursued after Abner, and in going he didn't turn to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Is it you, Asahel?" He answered, "It is I." Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay hold on one of the young men and take his armor." But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. Abner again said to Asahel, "Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab your brother?" However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore Abner, with the back end of the spear, struck him in the body, so that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it happened that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. But Joab and Abishai pursued after Abner, and the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammah, that lies before Giah by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. The children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one band, and stood on the top of a hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, "Shall the sword devour forever? Don't you know that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then before you bid your people return from following their brothers?" Joab said, "As God lives, if you had not spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone away, nor followed every one his brother." So Joab blew the trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more, neither fought they any more. Abner and his men went all that night through the Arabah, and they passed over the Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and came to Mahanaim. Joab returned from following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men, and Asahel. But the servants of David had struck of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. They took up Asahel, and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was in Bethlehem. Joab and his men went all night, and the day broke on them at Hebron. Chapter 3. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, and David grew stronger and stronger, but the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. To David were sons born in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon, of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and his second Chileab, of Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, the son of Maacah the daughter of Talmai king of Geshur, and the fourth Adonijah the son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah the son of Abital, and the sixth Ithream of Eglah David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. It happened, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" Then was Abner very angry for the words of Ishbosheth, and he said, "Am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah? This day do I show kindness to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hand of David, and yet you charge me this day with a fault concerning this woman. God do so to Abner, and more also, if, as the Lord has sworn to David, I don't do even so to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. He could not answer Abner another word, because he feared him. Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, Whose is the land? Saying also, Make your league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with you, to bring about all Israel to you. He said, Well, I will make my league with you, but one thing I require of you, that is, you shall not see my face, except you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, Give me my wife Michal, whom I pledged to be married to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Paltiel the son of Laish. Her husband went with her, weeping as he went, and followed her to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, Go, return. And he returned. Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, In times past you sought for David to be king over you. Now then do it. For the Lord has spoken of David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin, and Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel, and to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. David made Abner and the men who were with him a feast. Abner said to David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all that your soul desires. David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Behold, the servants of David and Joab came from a foray, and brought in great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host who was with him had come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he has sent him away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away, and he is quite gone? You know Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive you, and to know your going out and your coming in, and to know all that you do. When Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of Sirah, but David didn't know it. When Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into the midst of the gate to speak with him quietly, and struck him there in the body, so that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. Afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever of the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it fall on the head of Joab, and on all his father's house, and let there not fail from the house of Joab one who has an issue, or is a leper, or who leans on a staff, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner, because he had killed their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, Tear your clothes, and put on sackcloth, and mourn before Abner. King David followed the bier. They buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice, and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. The king lamented for Abner, and said, Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put into fetters. As a man falls before the children of iniquity, so did you fall. All the people wept again over him. All the people came to cause David to eat bread while it was yet day, but David swore, saying, God do so to me, and more also, if I taste bread or anything else, until the sun goes down. All the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatever the king did pleased all the people. So all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to kill Abner the son of Ner. The king said to his servants, Don't you know that there a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? I am this day weak, though anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too hard for me. May the Lord reward the evildoer according to his wickedness. Now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his time had come, that he would depart from this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. After supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he came forth from God, and was going to God, arose from supper, and laid aside his outer garments. He took a towel, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Then he poured water into the basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Then he came to Simon Peter. He said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him, You don't know what I am doing now, but you will understand later. Peter said to him, You will never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I don't wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, Someone who is bathed only needs to have his feet washed, but is completely clean. You are clean, but not all of you. For he knew him who would betray him, therefore he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet, put his outer garment back on, and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord. You say so correctly, for so I am. If I then, the Lord and the teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I tell you, a servant is not greater than his Lord, neither one who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. I don't speak concerning all of you. I know whom I have chosen. But that the scripture may be fulfilled, he who eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. From now on I tell you before it happens, that when it happens you may believe that I am. Most assuredly I tell you, he who receives whomever I send receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. When Jesus had said this, he was troubled in spirit and testified, Most assuredly I tell you that one of you will betray me. The disciples looked at one another, perplexed about whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was at the table, leaning against Jesus' breast. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him and said to him, Tell us who it is of whom he speaks. He, leaning back as he was on Jesus' breast, asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus therefore answered, It is he to whom I will give this piece of bread when I have dipped it. So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. After the piece of bread, then Satan entered into him. Then Jesus said to him, What you do, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew why he said this to him. For some thought, because Judas had the money box, that Jesus said to him, Buy what things we need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. Therefore, having received that morsel, he went out immediately. It was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and he will glorify him immediately. Little children, I will be with you a little longer. You will seek me, and as I said to the Jews, Where I am going, you can't come. So now I tell you. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just like I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered, Where I am going, you can't follow now, but you will follow afterwards. Peter said to him, Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered him, Will you lay down your life for me? Most assuredly I tell you, the rooster won't crow until you have denied me 3 times. Psalm 118. Give thanks to Yahweh, for he is good, for his loving kindness endures forever. Let Israel now say that his loving kindness endures forever. Let the house of Aaron now say, that his loving kindness endures forever. Now let those who fear Yahweh say, that his loving kindness endures forever. Out of my distress I called on Yah. Yah answered me with freedom. Yahweh is on my side. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? Yahweh is on my side among those who help me. Therefore I will look in triumph at those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in Yahweh than to put confidence in man. It is better to take refuge in Yahweh than to put confidence in princes. All the nations surrounded me, but in the name of Yahweh I cut them off. They surrounded me, yes, they surrounded me. In the name of Yahweh I indeed cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They are quenched like the burning thorns. In the name of Yahweh I cut them off. You pushed me back hard to make me fall, but Yahweh helped me. Yah is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. The voice of rejoicing and salvation is in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of Yahweh does valiantly. The right hand of Yahweh is exalted. The right hand of Yahweh does valiantly. I will not die, but live and declare Yah's works. Yah has punished me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open to me the gates of righteousness. I will enter into them. I will give thanks to Yah. This is the gate of Yahweh. The righteous will enter into it. I will give thanks to you, for you have answered me, and have become my salvation. The stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. This is Yahweh's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that Yahweh has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save us now, we beg you, Yahweh. Yahweh, we beg you now, send prosperity. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. We have blessed you out of the house of Yahweh. Yahweh is God, and he has given us light. Bind the sacrifice with cords even to the horns of the altar. You are my God, and I will give thanks to you. You are my God, I will exalt you. Oh, give thanks to Yahweh, for he is good, for his loving kindness endures forever. The path of life leads upward for the wise, to keep him from going downward to Sheol. Yahweh will uproot the house of the proud, but he will keep the widow's borders intact. Yahweh detests the thoughts of the wicked, but the thoughts of the pure are pleasing. He who is greedy for gain troubles his own house, but he who hates bribes will live. The heart of the righteous weighs answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes out evil.